Hey everybody, welcome back to Mike's Wooden Things and Stuff. I got this thing. I recently made some charcuterie boards, some more charcuterie boards, out of cherry with walnut and maple strips in them. And in order to expedite the process, I made them all 3 or 4 inches too long so that I could cut the snipe off either ends after they went through the planer. But I don't like wasting wood, as you might know if you watch this channel. So I've glued up some of those end chunks that I cut off into this. And I'm going to try to make my first lidded box out of it today on the lathe. Because I watched somebody make one on the internet and now I want to. Okay, I've got a couple hours until the sun gets across to the other side of the house and I can do some weeding in the backyard, take care of the yard a little bit. So let's see if I can do something with this. It'll be very, very small, whatever it ends up being, because this is only like 3 inches tall and it's got to come out of it this way. So, maybe. We'll see. All right, the first thing we got to do is figure out where we're going to take the blank out of this block, because we've got, actually let's go this side. We've got about almost 3 inches of width in that. So we got to decide whether we want it off center. I think maybe we might center this time on, I tried to, when I glued it up, these are the walnut and the maple strips from the charcuterie boards. So I tried to offset and make a thing. I didn't know what I was doing with this blank when I made it, but I might just grab that point right there as the center and just do like that out of it and see what we can get. So I've got this much width, and if that's the center, man, this is almost exactly, this is going to take out almost exactly at the edges of the maple on that. So I'm just going to start with that. Should be a little bit oversized, but not by very much. Make that the middle, and we'll chop a blank out of this and see what we can do. Let's get putting it on something, a saw of some kind, probably a bandsaw. Okay, so once I actually decided to use the table saw to take off these extra little extrapolary bits. That's a thing, right? Extrapolary bits? I don't know. Anyway, we're getting the blank squared up so that we can put it on the lathe. I used that center point between those 2 pieces of walnut, like I said at the beginning there, as the center point for it, which, looking back on it, was probably the right decision. I get it all marked up, and then I can get it chucked up on the lathe after I clip the corners off, so I don't have quite as much work to do. I don't like turning things that are squared on the lathe, because you're turning air a lot of the time, and I'm not really that good at turning, so I like things to be a little bit smoother than that by the time I actually start putting a tool to them. And once it gets all mounted up, I can grab my tools. I'm still, at this point, using my carbide tools. So I grab the 2 that I think I'm going to need and my face shield, and I get to turn it. When you clip the corners off things, it doesn't take very long to get them to actual cylindrical value here. So that's one of the advantages. And then I can turn a tenon on both ends and mark off where I want to separate the lid from the not lid, I guess, the box. And once I get it down most of the way with the parting tool, I can chop through the rest of it with a random saw, get it separated, and then I can start working on hollowing it out. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed the process of experimenting with this and learning how to make these, because it's actually really rewarding to just go at something being relatively new at turning and then coming out with something after just a couple hours of mucking around on the lathe. Here we are hollowing out the lid, and we'll make a little recess, a square, flat recess along the edge that is essentially going to serve as the mortise for the tenon that we're going to put on the box later, that will seat down into that. We can get it all sanded up and grab some oil wax Howards like I use on a lot of things and get that rubbed into the inside of the lid. And then essentially we're done with that part. Looks pretty good so far, right? And we take the lid off and mount the box on the lathe. We measure the tenon with the calipers, and then spoiler alert, we don't lock the calipers. And we also lose the banjo and tool rest. But we get back at it once we find that and start measuring the tenon piece, and then realize that we had not locked the calipers. So we got to take that tenon off and do another one and get impatient. And so we got to do a third one, and then we slow down, slowly take it down to approximate size, and then we can get down to hollowing the inside of the box. And yeah, I can't say that I'm a huge fan of hollowing things out with these carbide tools. Once you get over the edge of the tool rest by a certain distance with these short carbide tools, you don't really have a lot of leverage, and it wants to grab and take it out of your hand and stuff. But we got it done, and then probably a little more sanding than most people would find necessary. And then once we sanded, we realized we still had bits of tear out that we didn't like, and we go back in with more rounds of sanding. But you know, this is a shallow-ish depth of thing that we're making, so it's I would say, you know what? This is another thing that happened. I started finessing the tenon, and I realized that my wall was getting super thin, and I was about to break through it. So I ended up actually putting the lid back on and opening up the mortise a little bit to match the tenon instead of matching the tenon to the mortise, because I was getting, like I said, I was getting too thin on the tenon part on the box. So I just opened it up a little bit on the lid, and then I could re-sand and finish stuff the lid. It was a little bit of an ordeal, but I mean, start to finish, this thing took me about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. I like the little happy dance when I finally got it to fit. Yes, I was a very happy boy at this point. And then once that fits, we can actually work on taking the tenon off the bottom. So we do that. Oh, I think, yep, it sure did come off a couple of times while I was doing it. But a piece of shop rag in between the tenon and the mortise on the box helped to secure it to itself. And then nice light cuts. It came off quite a few times while I was doing it, but thankfully not major damage done along the way. And then we could just get to sanding and finishing, and I'm actually quite happy with how it all came together. So yeah, that's it, that's all. Could buff in the wax and oil and stuff, and got ourselves a box. Alright. Well, there we go. Look at that. First try. I made a little lidded box thing. It's pretty small. I don't know what you would put in a box this size. Maybe like a couple of earrings or some rings or something. I don't know, but it's like put a little detailing on the bottom, and I made it at the top with a little bit of a kind of a waviness to it, and I don't think you can ask for much more from a first try at something like this. Fits relatively tight. Hold it upside down. I mean, it doesn't do that some of them do that you see people making, but It's pretty tight. It took a few tries, but yeah, pretty happy. Yeah, I think this is a thing that I might make some more of, because it was like a couple hours, and that was the first try at it. So I mean, I could get relatively quick and bust one of these out in an hour and a half maybe, and in between other projects. Why not? Yeah. That's fun. All right, thanks for watching. See you next time. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy. Go make something in the shop. Bye for now. Oh, if you like what I do, if you want to support the channel, you can head over to patreon.com/woodenthingsandstuff. I'll leave a link down below. And sometimes I give away little things like this over there. So, might be worth checking out. That's it. I'm gonna go find something little to put in this. All right.